How much do you know about your human rights? Between 2008 and 2015, human rights violations increased by 70% globally. Written in Paris in 1948, just after World War II brought humanity to its knees, the Universal Declaration for Human Rights helped protect all humans on planet Earth, or at least it did. And to clarify, human rights aim to ensure that individuals can live with dignity, freedom, equality, justice, and peace. We think it is necessary to discuss whether these rights are still being upheld globally and whether they are still relevant in an ever-changing world. And for all you fun lovers, a bit later we will be playing a game of is this happening in the 21st century or is this Roman times? You can drop us a comment below if you get any right. In today's complex geopolitical landscape, the principles enshrined in the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights often appear more aspirational than actualized. Despite its foundational vision of universal equality and justice, the contemporary reality reveals stark disparities. Around the globe, systemic injustices persist, evidenced by the plight of refugees, the rise of authoritarian regimes, and the erosion of civil liberties even in established democracies. Governments increasingly prioritize national security over personal freedoms, often justifying invasive surveillance and arbitrary detentions. Moreover, economic inequality exacerbates access to basic rights such as healthcare and education, leaving millions disenfranchised. As conflicts proliferate and political divisions deepen, the global commitment to upholding human rights seems to falter, prompting a critical examination of whether the world has strayed from the post-war promise of universal human dignity. With so many examples of dissolving human rights, it's hard to know where to start. But why not start with a simple one, the right to protest? All over the world now, legislation is being presented that would make aspects of protest illegal. For example, in the United Kingdom, law has now been passed, making it totally legal for police to arrest anyone who is protesting in a peaceful way. The UK government justifies these measures by citing the need to balance the right to protest with the need to maintain public order and minimise disruption to daily life. They argue that recent high-profile protests, such as those by the Extinction Rebellion and Insulate Britain, have caused significant disruption, necessitating stronger powers for the police. The response to the act has been polarised. Human rights organisations, legal experts, and opposition politicians have condemned the legislation, arguing it undermines fundamental democratic rights. Amnesty International, for example, has described the act as an attack on civil liberties. Something to really think about there, especially if you live in the UK. Across the Atlantic, the United States has witnessed a disturbing rollback of voting rights, with numerous states enacting laws that disproportionately disenfranchise marginalised communities. Alabama's law stipulates that individuals convicted of certain felonies involving moral turpitude are permanently disenfranchised unless they apply for a certificate of eligibility to register to vote. To clarify, moral turpitude includes anything from murder to theft, the latter seeming very harsh. Imagine a 16-year-old gets caught stealing a chocolate bar, and the officer called to the scene is on some power trip. Which, let's be honest, he probably will be because American cops are dicks. He may never be able to vote. This process is often complex and costly, discouraging many from attempting to regain their rights. In Mississippi, over 235,000 individuals were estimated to be disenfranchised due to felony convictions as of 2020, with black people making up 36% of the population, but 58% of those disenfranchised. These laws have a disproportionate impact on black communities, exacerbating historical inequalities. Black Americans are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of white Americans, leading to incredibly high rates of black citizens not being able to vote. The combination of systemic racism in the criminal justice system and stringent voting laws has resulted in millions of black Americans being stripped of their fundamental democratic rights, perpetuating cycles of political and social marginalization. Meanwhile, France has intensified its crackdown on freedom of expression, with controversial anti-separatism laws targeting Muslim communities and restricting religious freedoms. These actions, once unthinkable in democratic societies, reveal a sinister shift towards authoritarianism. where fundamental rights are eroded in the name of control and conformity. While the French government argues that the anti-separatism laws are necessary to uphold secularism and combat extremism, the measures have drawn significant backlash for their potential to infringe on religious freedoms and civil rights, disproportionately impacting the Muslim community. The laws risk deepening societal rifts and fostering an environment of mistrust and discrimination, which undermines the very principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity that they purport to protect. Now, it is all well and good focusing on developed and European countries, but the harder attacks on human rights come from further afield. For example, in El Salvador, Nayib Bukele has been president since 2019. He has gained a lot of support for taking thousands of supposed gang members off the street. Yesterday, I was speaking to a friend from El Salvador, and I was able to confirm that not the streets at night are much safer and people are able to walk around without the fear of murder, extortion and rape. But at what cost has this freedom come? My friend has also confirmed that many of the young men that have been incarcerated do not have any links to gangs and also did not face proper trial in a court of law. On top of that, she told me of the horrific conditions inside the prisons that sound similar to the film Papillon, if any of you have seen that. In China, the treatment of the Uyghur Muslim population in the Xinjiang region represents one of the most egregious violations in recent history. Over 1 million Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities are detained in so-called re-education camps, subjected to forced labour, indoctrination and severe human rights abuses, including torture and sexual violence. The Chinese government's pervasive surveillance network monitors every aspect of Uyghur life, eradicating cultural and religious practices under the guise of combating extremism. This large-scale state-sanctioned persecution has been condemned internationally, yet continues unabated, reflecting a blatant disregard for human dignity. Recently, I was wearing the Japanese brand Uniqlo when my friend pointed out they in fact used the Uyghurs as slave labour to make their clothes. Other companies such as Tesla, Volkswagen, Zara and H&M use the Uyghurs. Bear that in mind, Politics Gang, next time you go shopping. Meanwhile, in conflict zones like Syria and Yemen, the humanitarian crises are catastrophic. In Syria, ongoing civil war has led to widespread atrocities, including chemical weapon attacks, targeted bombings of civilian areas, and the deliberate starvation of besieged populations. The regime of Bashar al-Assad has shown a ruthless disregard for human life, committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. In Yemen, a devastating conflict driven by geopolitical interests has resulted in a famine affecting millions, with children bearing the brunt of the suffering. Airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition have targeted hospitals, schools and markets, causing mass civilian casualties and turning basic survival into a daily struggle. Let's lighten the mood with a quick game of 21st century or Roman times. Type your answers in the comments as you listen, and feel free to pause the video too. Good luck. Question: citizens accused of treason are subjected to damnatio memoriae, erasing their existence from public records and monuments, effectively condemning them to historical oblivion. Yes, it's the Roman times. Question: members of a minority religious group are systematically persecuted and expelled from their homes and communities by government authority. This time it's the 21st century. Question: individuals are detained indefinitely in secret prisons without access to legal counsel or contact with their families, under suspicion of terrorism. Again, it's the 21st century. Question: slaves captured in military conquests are forced to fight to the death in gladiatorial games for the entertainment of the masses. Back to the Roman times. Question: indigenous communities are forcibly relocated from their ancestral lands to make way for government-backed development projects without their consent. Yes, it's the 21st century. question. Political dissidents are executed publicly by crucifixion as a warning to others who oppose the ruling regime. Correct. It's the Roman times. And the final question, the whole of England being forced to watch the shittest football ever once or twice a week for a month. Easy one this. It's the 21st century. What an amazing quiz. Whoever made it needs a raise. You can help them by doing that by liking and subscribing. Thanks, Politics Gang. See you next time.